City of STEM.
Hello and welcome to our discussion about learning STEM skills through play and toys. My name is Ken Sider. I'm Executive Vice President of the Toy Association, and I'm joined with a very distinguished panel who we'll introduce in a second. But first, I just want to talk a few seconds about what STEM and STEAM are all about. The STEM movement basically started out of a need to supply the industries, science, technology, engineering, and math with the right professionals, and then also to build an educational system that could teach children the skills that they could, perform in those jobs. We at the Toy Association, we've been studying this for a few years now, and we've uncovered some interesting alignment with the toy industry. Everything from building sets to puzzles to dolls to chemistry sets to coding robots, etc. They all provide children with skills, for STEM and STEAM, but also at the same time, they give them encouragement and they provide, they motivate them to really get interested in these various topics and disciplines, which studies have shown is the most critical. So with that said, I want to introduce the panel, have them talk a few minutes about themselves, and then we'll jump into a series of questions that I'll discuss with them. First, I want to go to Netta. Netta Raven. Netta, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for being here. I'm the Vice President at Klutz. We are part of Scholastic, and Klutz has been making toys and books and craft kits for well over 40 years. They all really encourage creativity and creative confidence in children. And some of our most successful books are part of our STEM and STEAM line and our Maker Lab line. And they include some great products that we create together with our friends at LEGO. And everything that we do at Klutz is kid tested.
Great, thank you. Clement Chow.
Sure. Clement, I'm the Director of Learning at Leapfrog in VTech, where I direct a team of educators and learning experts to work with our product designers and producers when we create our products, ranging from toys, interactive books, reading platforms, to digital content like games, videos, and music. We cover a wide range of preschool and toddler curriculum. Of course, STEM is part of that, as well as literacy, math, social studies. So we think of the whole child curriculum at the company.
That's great, thank you. Sven Gerches.
Hi, I'm Sven. Thanks for having me. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Mattel. I've been at Mattel and in the toy industry for about 3.5 years. Most of my background has been in high-tech, telecommunications, media and entertainment, and even a stint in higher education. So I think I would be the definitive expert to say the toy industry is absolutely the most fun.
Thank you. And Tom Runts.
Hi, Ken. Thanks for having us here today. This is great. My name is Tom Runts. I'm the Director of Product Development at Learning Resources, a company that really started in the educational space, and we still have a huge presence there in the teacher and education market. In recent years, we've moved over into the parent market, and we really are at the forefront because of our relationship with schools of the STEM movement, and have been doing a lot in terms of bringing STEM from everywhere from pre-K up through the middle school ages, in things like robotics and coding and STEM kits and all kinds of things. So very excited to be here today.
That's great, Tom. Thank you. Thank you all for taking your time. I know it's valuable, and we're thrilled that you were able to join us. Okay, now I'm going to jump into some questions, but for anyone who is viewing this, if anyone is interested in reaching out to any or all of our panelists, we will be supplying their contact information with their permission. So just so you know that. Anyway, why don't we jump into the first question? First one, are play and learning the same thing, or are they different? And if different, how? Clement.
Sure. To start off, I definitely think that play and learning are connected, they're integral to each other. But no, I do not think that they are synonymous and that they're not the same. We can point to many instances where learning happens outside of play, like learning through video, demonstration, which many kids are doing nowadays, from reading a book to listening to stories or instructions, or sometimes even just observing how other people do things. So at VTech, we tend to use the term playful learning or educational play when we think about these type of topics. They help us think about designing learning experiences that are playful, incorporating elements of play into the learning process. Similarly, we also infuse or think about how we can incorporate learning moments into our toys or into the play experience that we design.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Sven, you want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, I very much subscribe to the lifelong learning mantra, and I'm very much a hands-on learner, so I may be a bit biased in this space, but I do think, we've got lots of evidence out there that toys and play develop kids cognitively, emotionally, socially, physically, and frankly, I think whether you're a toddler or about to retire, I think play is a key part of learning, and for me, it's continued to be a key part of learning, whether as an adult playing with new technologies in the sense of a toy, or seeing kids for the first time playing with toys and really having the aha moments and learning new skills.
That's great. Great. Very interesting. Okay, the second question. What role do toys play in encouraging science, technology, engineering, and math learning? What skills do they support? Meta, why don't we hand it over to you?
Sure. I think that toys really encourage curiosity, and toys are also hands-on. And it's my belief, and I think one that almost all of us hold, that learning is easier when you're doing something hands-on, something physical. And you can really see the connections of what you're tinkering and building and problem solving have created. And when you're playing with something and you're able to attach a circuit and a buzzer goes on and you get to make a cool little prank toy or something fun like that, you're also really making those connections to real world things that will continue to keep you interested in life.
That's great. You just reminded me of something. The American Pediatric Association, they did a massive study. And, the whole idea when you're talking about touch and handling and all that, what it does for the brain, how it helps children learn, in addition to all the other things, the auditory and the visual. And also, it was really interesting. Sven, what do you think?
I mean, for me, one of the big lessons that I've learned, I think, coming into the toy industry as a big nerd or a geek that loved connected toys and loved tech toys, is that, toys can be inspirational. They don't necessarily need technology or engineering capabilities to be great STEM toys. And with amazing brands at Mattel like Barbie and American Girl and Hot Wheels, one of the things we found is the ability to inspire kids into these STEM capabilities, showing them that they can be an engineer or a mathematician, and using some of the other great toys that folks on this panel has created to actually take those skills further. But, being able to inspire kids through a robotic engineering Barbie doll that doesn't have any tech in it to go over to try programming and learn that they can do those skills and really just see themselves as adults in those fields has been super powerful. So I think STEM toys can be both connected and tech-enabled, as well as just inspirational.
Sven, you said something interesting also, how children can see themselves in the adult role. That whole role modeling piece and so is so important. And, I think that's great. Just great. Okay, Tom, this is yours. Okay. What is an ideal age to promote STEM skills?
Okay, well, I don't know about pinpointing an exact ideal age, but I think the evidence is out there, the research is out there to strongly support the introduction of STEM skills as early as the preschool and pre-K environments. And what I mean by that is there was a particular study put out by the Community for Advancing Discovery Research and Education, CADRE. And one of the phrases that they use that we very much take to heart at Learning Resources is the promotion of STEM-related habits of mind. And those are things that children at the earliest age are already showing: curiosity, communication, persistence, collaboration, critical thinking. And really, those are the building blocks for all other types of learning. I think what we need to be careful about is because STEM is still relatively new, I think people, especially parents, can be a little scared off by the words themselves, science, technology, engineering, and math. But the way that I would put it is that's no difference than parents who, and we all accept the importance of teaching literacy at an early age, but no one's saying that teachers should be reading Hamlet in circle time. We know that it's the building blocks of literacy that are important, and that approach to STEM we feel should equally be matched in the preschool environment.
That's great. In one of our studies, we did a survey of about 2,000 parents, and we asked them what are some of the anxiety points, if you will, and all that. And uniformly, they all said what you just said, Tom, that we know less than our kids know. We don't know technology. We don't, I can barely turn on my computer, and so then that was 76% of the participants in the survey.
I think we sometimes need to just educate the parents that so much of what their children are doing around the house are these early building blocks. They naturally sort, collect, identify, right, organize, build, destroy. All of these things serve as the building blocks for STEM skills, and I think it's incumbent upon us to put them into an educational environment that can, then lead to bigger building blocks as they get into their school years.
Yeah, totally. That's great. Just great. Okay, next one. The terms STEM and STEAM are often used interchangeably. I've been doing it actually right now, and without a clear definition, which can be confusing to parents and to teachers. Can you clarify the difference? Why is the incorporation of A in STEM and making it STEAM so important? Why don't we reach out first to Tom? Tom, what do you think?
Oh, you know what? Is it okay for me to bounce this to Netta, because I've heard Netta's response and I like it. And I just spoke too much, so I'd like to defer to Netta.
Okay, Netta, you're on.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Let me think about what I said last time that you loved. I think that STEM and STEAM are actually very interchangeable. To me, I do not see a really big difference between the two because I think they're both really creative. They're both about problem solving. They're both about thinking outside of the box. And if we could make STEM a little bit more open to the artistically minded, to that kid that wants to use different known materials like felt or clay and things like that, and encourage them, and I'm talking about girls maybe, and people that might not know and feel really safe saying that they love science or engineering into the field, and we do a really good job. So I think a lot of the arts and crafts materials that you already probably know are also part of STEM in a way. You're still, like you said, Tom, you're measuring, you're counting, sewing something is often really similar to coding. There's so many connections, and I don't think that we need to make a really big distinction. So I use them interchangeably as well.
That's great. Clement.
I definitely echo Netta in terms of thinking about incorporation or not necessarily creating some sort of economy or a difference between STEM and STEAM. At Leapfrog and VTech, we definitely look at the whole child. We don't necessarily have a particular line of products or a segment of our products under STEM or STEAM branding, partly because we think that at the age of our audience, our kids that we create products for, we're really fostering like a mindset of attitudes of curiosity, experimentation, and all the other things that other speakers have already spoken about. So when we think about sorting, which is a foundational skill for later STEM activities, kids are already sorting with their ball drops and their cup stackers, right? And so I think it's hard to articulate them as necessarily STEM toys specifically. They're just toys that many kids have. Now, we do have some products that are for a little older age kids, maybe tolerant preschoolers that have more of an element to it. So, for example, we have our Leap Reader book, Engineering a Win, where we talk, it's a story about 4 kindergarten kids that try to work together to build a soapbox for a race. and they used some of the principles in the engineering design process to solve some of their problems. We have another toy, the VTech Mixed Matrosaurus, where kids use coding tiles to give instruction to the dinosaur to dance or to stomp in anger or to practice calming down. It's a way to really incorporate other topics like social emotional skills into the STEM type of activity. So we try to bring all that together as much as possible, partly because we think that the skills are not really learned in silos, nor are they practiced in silos as adults in the profession, right? So we always think about the whole child.
Clement, you said something really very profound, actually, and I think he was referring to anxiety, relieving anxieties and stress, especially now, children, and this whole COVID craziness that we're going through and all, and how toys and play, STEM, whatever we want to call it, really, play a very, very critical role in that. There was something that I found was very interesting. When STEM started being incorporated into education, especially in higher education and colleges, right away liberal arts was kind of pushed aside for a while. And so then, students were encouraged to take science courses and math and engineering and that type of thing and all. And what a lot of educators started observing after a couple of years is that the whole other side of the brain wasn't necessarily being activated. There's the left side, which is the analytical side, and the right side, which is the artistic side. And then it was either MIT, some of you might have heard me talk about this before, but a couple of years ago, either MIT or Harvard did a survey of many, many CEOs of the largest international companies. And they asked them, what are your biggest challenges in recruiting talents and getting people on board? And they said, we go to the best schools, we get the top of the class students and everything, and they are experts in their field, whatever they've studied. What they can't be is they're not able to zag. In other words, if a curveball is thrown at them, initially it's very difficult. That whole learning and a mental agility part of the brain isn't necessarily exercised enough. And that's where, in many cases, liberal arts play there. And that's why the whole idea of, be it STEM, be it STEAM, that whole arts part, and Netta, to your point, is all incorporated. It's all part, truly all part. And toys and play, have an active role. Tom, are you going to say something?
Well, I think it's important for us to bring this back to all of us as members of the toy industry. And while I do actually agree with Netta that I think all the best STEM toys probably do have an element of STEAM in them, I will say that I think it's incumbent upon us, because we were trying as an organization, as an association, to help the parents make informed choices, that if we are going to make the choice to promote something as a STEAM toy, that we make sure that artistic element is, organically matched within the STEM play of what you do, and doesn't just feel like it's a slapdash addition to a STEM toy. So I do feel that we owe it to the consumer out there, when they do see STEAM labeled, to make sure that the artistic part is, is a very strong part of the play and isn't just an afterthought.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And, it's interesting also at this point, what I'm struggling with after studying this stuff for a few years is that where is the physical toy involved and where is the activity involved? And, even if it's a scientific experiment, if there's a certain level of activity that maybe pulls in imagination and, daydreaming and whatever other parts of the brain are needed for that activity and everything like that. I don't know where that is, but I'm just curious about that. That's a topic for another discussion. Okay, next question. Okay. What characteristics should parents and educators look for when selecting STEAM toys for kids? Clement, why don't we start with you?
Sure, it's a great segue to what you just mentioned earlier about the toy and the topics and the activities. I think that certainly there are specific knowledge and skills within the discipline, like science, engineering, math topics that are valuable for children to learn. And often that comes in the form of passion topics, especially for young children, like kids who are drawn to just learning about dinosaurs or backyard insects, right? Those are great starting points. And I don't think that a STEM toy or STEM activity necessarily need to be about coding specifically. It can start from many different topics. And so products that expose kids to these topics are great. And I think, as Other mentioned, STEAM is really about developing a mindset or habit of mind, as someone has mentioned before, just about being curious about the world, fostering like a sense of experimentation, just trying things and seeing what happens. And for me, something that's really important is fostering or building a sense in kids that, you know, all the challenges and problems in the world is really waiting for solutions, waiting for, you know, some new ideas to solve. And so these are really coming from really open-ended play. So I would say that when looking for a STEAM toy for kids, really things that are open-ended, allowing for trial and error, and not always about right and wrong answers. So toys are great because they are something that you manipulate and really just do something and see what happens.
Interesting. Sen.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a big difference between a STEM or a STEM learning tool versus a STEM learning toy. And while, you know, often we may call a STEM learning tool a toy, kids have a radar for that. They can smell out a learning tool over a learning toy very quickly. And so I do think that if it's going to be a STEM toy, it has to be fun and engaging. It has to be play patterns that kids understand and love. And then we have to figure out how to, you know, also make it a STEM learning toy. I mean, I think a great example is, you know, Hot Wheels for us, a Hot Wheels die-cast car. Think about the physics it takes to be able to get a die-cast car to be able to do a 360 loop on a piece of track. Kids play with that, they love it. They don't think I'm learning physics. And one of the things we did with Hot Wheels is we added on a STEM curriculum to Hot Wheels called Speedometry, so that, you know, that play actually becomes a learning vessel or learning vehicle, pardon the pun, for the kids, you know, to take those next steps. So I think fun is important. If we're going to call it a toy, it should be fun, play patterns that kids love and enjoy and are engaged with.
That's great. That's great. Tom.
Yeah, and learning resources, one of the approaches that we tend to take is, and I think we all tend to agree, a lot of us have been on these panels before, there's really not a one-size-fits-all definition to what a STEM toy is. Or, I think Sven brought up some interesting points on STEM tools versus STEM toys. For us, though, we tend to sometimes break it down to the essence of the engineering design process. Again, big wordy idea, but it's really something that children are already exploring before they even know it. And it's the idea that things start with open-ended play, with asking questions, to go back to Sven and the Hot Wheels cars. How can I jump this car across a room? And then imagining solutions to what their problem might be, actually making a plan for it, testing that plan out, and then sort of calibrating the results and trying it again. Any toy that really develops those early skills and that mindset, again, that STEM mindset, I think makes a really strong early STEM toy, or even a STEM toy for anyone of any age.
Oh, interesting. That's good. Yeah. Now, what can parents do to engage kids in STEM activities at home? Netta.
I think, you know, parents might not always feel that comfortable, and they might be a little intimidated, thinking, how am I going to teach kids STEM, you know, just in our everyday interactions? Because they don't all remember, I don't remember all of the scientific method. You know, you have your hypothesis and, you know, but if you could take some of that intimidation factor out and just work in naturally in a fun way, as Sven and Tom were talking about, just there's so many examples all around us, right? And COVID-19, as you mentioned before, Ken, obviously has been horrible in many, many ways. But one good thing that has come out of it, at least for me, is getting to spend so much time with my kids. I have 3 young boys, and we had so many projects. This summer, we decided we were going to build a vegetable bed together. And we did everything from measuring our plot, going to Home Depot, building the actual structure of the bed and then figuring out what the optimal soil would be and how much compost and how much soil and how to space out the beans, and we use string to separate the plots of the different vegetables, and all the way to harvesting. And it was just like such a wonderful activity for the whole family to participate in. And all along the way, the kids were learning STEM and STEAM. And I think it's going to carry them through, and they're going to be excited about projects like that in the future. And you could say that about anything that a parent is interested in doing with their kid, or that it's even better, the kid just takes an interest in by themselves, like cooking. They love baking, and there's measuring, and how much time do you keep it in the oven? It's everywhere around us, right? That's the whole point. And of course, all of a sudden, all of the kits that I make at work with Klutz, my kids have suddenly taken an interest in, when before they were like, Mom, get that away from me. I don't want to learn how to make a bunny slipper or anything like that. Now they're like looking for sewing things and wanting to make little clay, rabbits. And they've created this whole world with mixed media. It's so much fun. And it's available to all of us.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was speaking of baking. You made me think of, a neighbor of ours. She was, she had her kids, and she happens to have 3 boys, and she was making bread, and then they were incorporating yeast. But they got into a big discussion about yeast and how it's a living organism and how it eats the sugar and digests, and why does the bread rise and all that. What an incredible, lesson in chemistry and I guess physics, but chemistry certainly. That really, really good point. Good point. Clement.
Yeah, I just want to echo, what Nana said about there's so many opportunities at home, and things that, we might not even think as STEM or STEAM related. Like when a sink gets clogged or a piece of furniture is too heavy to lift, like these are all problems to be solved, right? And the opportunity to incorporate, more innovative or curiosity into the process. These are day-to-day things that are challenges. I think at the core of STEM and STEAM is solving problems. And so I think these are great opportunities to bring kids into the picture, and really asking them to help solve the problem or coming up with new ideas. From my point of view, I think one of the key things is really giving kids genuine real-life problems to figure out. And I cannot stress enough how important it is for the kids to see their own proposal, their solutions to be tried out by adults. To your point, you spoke about anxiety or this sense of, am I good enough to try things? I think it really starts from the very young. Of course, we parents have to do it safely, with some, parameters and limitations what the kids can do. But I think allowing kids to sketch out what they think could work or coming up with solutions, and then parents trying them, boost their confidence. And we really want kids to learn to fail, right? Like to accept failure and that fail as much as possible, because failing is part of the process of developing successful solution. And I do see, at Leapfrog, we create products for everything, for kids age from toddlers all the way to preschool, kindergartners, and early grades. And we do see kids at some point starting to be afraid of failing or choosing the wrong answer. And we try so hard in our products as we test them. We want to make sure to take that away from that process, right? We want kids to be comfortable failing and to know, okay, once they fail, what they can learn from it. How do they pick themselves up, come out with a new solution?
What a great lesson to learn how to fail and to go beyond that and know that there's something beyond and what you can learn from.
City.
Incredible.
City of STEM.
Idea, Clement, that you said about ownership, for the child to come up. This was my thing. This is what I come up with. This was my idea, and how complicated or simple, it doesn't matter. I think that's just great. I think that's great. Okay, let's see. Stereotypes are a barrier that prevents many young people of diverse backgrounds from pursuing a career in STEM. How can toys and play help address this problem? Sven, why don't we start with you?
Sure. We found a study a couple years ago. It was a very sad study that showed that girls are 3 times less likely to be given a STEM-related toy than boys. And I'm hoping that we've come a long way since then. But I think at its core, there's many studies that show similar things. And I really do believe that, toys and the toy industry can really be an inspiration to kids to see themselves doing something maybe that they didn't believe that they could do. Some kids go into STEAM-related and STEM-related toys because they have this, kind of drive to be hands-on and technical or love logic or love doing things. But there's so many kids that I think are left out of that because of bias and stereotypes, that are truly unconscious to parents or to industries. And I think it's incumbent on all of us, not just the toy industry, but parents and teachers and educators and corporations to really try to break those barriers down and show kids that they can be a mathematician or an engineer or scientist. One of the things I'm probably most proud of at Mattel that we've done in this space is using, again, our brands to inspire. We partnered with Tinker a couple of years ago, and they build programming curriculum for kids. And we partnered with them with brands like Hot Wheels and Barbie and Monster High. And just a month ago, I got a note from them that we're almost at 10 million kids that have gone through programming curriculum just because of these kind of brand inspirations. And, I love to see that they go in there, whether they're going to be a software engineer or a doctor or an artist or whatever. They're learning logic and they're learning things that they can use no matter what they do in the future. And so I think we have to all look and make sure that we're breaking down those barriers and inspiring kids into these roles. As a CTO, I desperately need talent. And I need the future talent pool in my organization. And it's, a plea to everybody that we inspire a really diverse set of engineers in the future.
Oh, that's great. It's just great. Tom.
Great answers, Sven, and great answers all around. I'd like to tie this question back to the earlier one that I took on the introduction of STEM skills at an early age, because I do think they are connected, and also broaden this beyond the discussion of gender and into the racial and the socioeconomic component of bias here. And all the more reason, in my mind, to start the introduction of STEM as early as possible. And as one example, take children who are learning English as a second language and who are already a little bit have an obstacle in their way that they have to get past, right, compared to some of their peers. What better thing to introduce to them while they're learning English than, say, a language-free science kit? And that's one of the reasons why we work very hard at Learning Resources to try our best to have a lot of language-free content in our STEM activities. For one, because we go out to over 80 countries, but also because we are taking into account the ability to introduce these concepts to children who might not have English as their primary language. There's so much we can do. Introduce the concepts earlier so that young boys and girls and children of color think of these as the normal occupations that they all want to grow up to, and also are given the opportunity as early as possible to normalize the playing field. So I do think those two questions are connected as far as the age of introduction and the way in which we can fight some of these barriers to entry.
Well, that's good. That's really, really good. Really interesting. Okay, let's see. Now, you've mentioned somewhat some examples, Sven, when you were talking, I was automatically thinking of Barbie when you said, the way you've utilized that incredible iconic brand and, reached out in different areas and helped, people, women in particular. Oh, Netta, did I talk, did you speak about the...
No, that's okay.
You sure? Well, why don't you say something?
Sure.
Stereotypes.
Anything.
Also, you're
I'm the only woman and you skipped me. It's interesting.
Right. Actually, blame me. Oh, blame Anna for Janice. Don't blame me.
No, it's absolutely fine. I mean, listen, I obviously grew up as a little girl, and I loved science and math, and I loved dirt, and I loved digging little rivers that and figuring out how to make a waterfall and, roads. And I wanted to become an architect or landscape architect. And once as many little girls, what happens is, they go in loving math or loving science. And because they're with other kids or they're encouraged out of it, I'm not exactly sure what happens at this critical age, but they lose interest in math and they're not as excited about it. And it's okay for all the boys to love math, and it's less okay for all the girls to love math. And we're told to go play with some of the art materials or go play with the dolls instead of playing with the robots. So it's like we have to work really hard to break these stereotypes. It's not going to just happen naturally. I mean, in terms of diversity, it's not okay to just say, okay, I'll try to put BIPOC, person of color, on our packaging. You have to say, I'm going to commit. And, as a company, Scholastic and Klutz said, we're going to make sure that 50% of our covers have people on it will have representation of every single type of color of person. And we do. And it's pretty amazing. At Klutz, all of the art and all of the kids that are on the covers, we always make sure that if there's hands included in the technical illustrations teaching the step-by-step, they are all different colors. That there's boys playing with things that you think girls might just naturally play with, and vice versa. You have to actually really push and make a commitment, because it might not sell the most copies having a boy on the cover of something that's in the arts and crafts department, but you have to just try.
Oh, yeah, interesting. Anyone else want to add to that? It's a big deal. I have a
How do you add to that?
I'm sorry, how do you add to that? Yeah. When my daughter was, I guess she was in either kindergarten or first grade, and she was this little bit of a thing, and she was on playing soccer. And, she and one other girl were on the team, the rest were boys, and she scored. And her name was in the paper. And it was all this big thing, and she got so castigated by it from the boys on the team, she dropped out. And she never played soccer again. Never played soccer.
That study I mentioned also had a finding that said girls at age 9 stop believing they can be anything. And there is something to that kind of, the growing up and the kids you're around and the things that you see in life. I love the packaging reference. I mean, I think that's so important. We think a lot about what goes into a good toy or what goes into a good STEM toy, but how do we inspire every child to give it a shot and then to be able to stick with it beyond age 9 or beyond, their teenage years or whatever? Because I think there are a lot of kids out there like Netta who were drawn to it and loved it. There's other kids that just maybe never believed that they could do it, and other kids that are drawn to it and then at some point are told that that's not a role for them or a space that they should go into. And so it's so powerful. I think we have been given, we have a great responsibility as an industry to really continue to evolve these expectations and these stereotypes.
Yeah, really, really good point. This is actually the last question, but we can continue talking. I can talk forever on this, but do you guys have specific examples of using toys and play to teach children the necessary skills of science, technology, engineering, and math? And you've mentioned some of them a little bit, but do you guys have any examples? Anybody can jump in.
Let me jump in real quick, and I'm sure others have more specific examples, but I do think that, the industry is continuing to evolve into more connected play. And I'm not talking about connected STEM toys. I'm talking about connected toys, connected play. And I think the architecture that's required to create great connected play patterns and connected toys is easily evolved with very low cost into STEM. We launched Hot Wheels ID last year, which is very much, we've very much focused on how do we create, the most immersive digital and physical kind of racing experience that we could. And it took us very little to just take that extra step and extend a Swift playground integration to it so that kids can learn how to program in augmented reality, or even implementing AR capabilities into the toys so a child could, show the car on their floor, less about play, but more about just inspiring them to understand these new technologies and these new capabilities that are coming out. And so I think, again, as an industry, I think we need to look at where we draw the line on some of these toys. And if we can draw the line just a little further, we can create some amazing, fun experiences that also have an element of STEM or STEAM to them. So I think, Hot Wheels Ideas is, to me, a great example of a toy that also has STEM.
Great.
I'd like to maybe build on what is said there. I think there are definitely great examples of STEM or STEAM-specific toys. I mentioned Leapfrog and VTech. We have developed some. But I also want to, talk a little bit about how the objects and the toys themselves may be or may not be labeled as STEM or STEAM. It's really how you interact and how the kids and parents play with them that builds and fosters the type of thinking skills, the type of experiences that we want kids to have. So we have a line of building block products, the Leap Builders, where we don't necessarily call it a STEM toy, but the block building experience itself encourages and fosters a lot of the type of thinking, type of geometry skills, and really building a tall tower to knock it down, or building a really wide open space for the characters to go into. I think these are foundational skills. We can argue whether we call them STEM or STEAM, but I think these are what we would want to instill and prepare children for as they get older, when they get into maybe the actual science or engineering knowledge, like coding or biology or chemistry skills.
That's great. And that's also getting back to that argument, is it the physical thing, or is it the activity, or is it both? Is it the combination of both, which is really interesting. They're giving me the signal that, our time is kind of up. Again, we could spend, we're just beginning. Oh my God. But anyhow, whoever is viewing this segment, I encourage you all to reach out, and those they're our great panel. And by the way, I want to thank Clement, Netta, Tom, and Sven. Thank you so much for sharing your intelligence and your time, and you're doing great things. And I encourage you to keep going. Me as I'm leaving the industry, I encourage you guys to just keep going. And and please, I encourage everyone, any viewers, you go to Leapfrog and VTech websites, go to Mattel, go to Klutz, go to Learning Resources, and check out all the great things that these people are doing. And then finally, if you go on thetoyassociation.org/STEAM, you'll see some of the studies that we've done and some of the learning that we've acquired from people like you're hearing from today and from others. Well, thank you so much, and let's all stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.